there was a vendor who was selling SAP R3 implementation and integration services. So they had done a great deal of the original SAP work, and now they were going with the implementation services for the final phase. Yeah? And they were selling this to Deutsche Bahn, the German rail service. Now, 2 days before the contract is due to be signed, the vendor gets a call, and Deutsche Bahn is on the other end of the call saying, look, this SAP thing, it's off. We need to postpone it. And the vendor's going, what? What do you mean you need to postpone it? We've got everybody, we've got all of the people ready, all of the really expensive consultants have already flown over. And Deutsche Bahn said, yeah, but we don't have a contract for this yet, do we? Well, no, but you know, we're all ready to go. Well, I'm sorry, it's off. We will do it, but just not now. Yeah? And the vendor said, but, you know, give us some time. Put down the phone. 6 months later, they were able to go back in. And they said, what happened? And the operations guy, yeah, and this is where we come to this flip chart. The operations guy who was responsible for SAP in Deutsche Bahn, he said, well, there was a problem. 3 days before we were due to sign, the sales and marketing people went to the boss, the CEO, and they made him an offer he couldn't refuse. Remember The Godfather? He made me an offer I couldn't refuse. And they said, what do you mean he made him an offer he couldn't refuse? And this is where the story gets funny, because the boss of Deutsche Bahn at this time was a guy called Franz, yeah? And Franz was like 63 years old. Franz was the most important man on the planet in the train world. Yeah? You know, America, China, nothing compared to German efficiency and German trains. Not even the Japanese could compete with France. Yeah? And France's track record and history go back to when he's 3 years old, when him and his dad had the biggest train set in the village. You know a train set? They had the biggest train set in the village. So France, from a very early age, has been in love with trains. Yeah? So the sales and marketing people, they knew this. So they said to their vendor, Bombardier, producer of trains, they said, look, our boss really digs this small metal stuff. Yeah? Can you make something like that? The guys at Bombardier said, yeah, no problem. We do all this kind of stuff all the time. We'll create a really cool one. Yeah? So they walk in, and they say to the boss, they say, hey boss, look, we got you a present. And the boss, Franz, looks at them and he's thinking of firing them or something that bosses do. And he said, well, what is it? And they pull out this little train, and it's red and stuff. And Franz, the most important man in German trains, is now transported back to being 5 years old, looking at a new toy. And he goes, oh, that's really cool. Choo-choo. It is funny. You have to get into it a little bit. The imagery of this for me is great. And he says, where did you get this from? And the guys from sales and marketing says, this is a prototype for a train that we could have on the tracks within 3 weeks. All we need to do, and we need a train between Frankfurt and Nuremberg. There's a track that is going underutilized. We need a train on that track. If we put a train on that track, we will break even, yeah, within 6 months, and then we start turning €1 million a week in profit. Yeah, 6 months break-even point. And he says, the boss said, well, it sounds brilliant, but you know, how much do you need? 3 million euros. Oh, no, that's a real problem because I just don't have 3 million euros. These guys say, you do have 3. No, I don't. You do. Where? What do you mean I do? I know how much money I have. Where do I have 3 million euros? And they say, well, your operations guy, he's just about to spend 3 million euros on the SAP R3. And the CEO says, oh, really? I knew there was something about him that I didn't like. He didn't buy me a train. So the operations guy gets a call from the boss. Peter, I've got some good news and some bad news. What's the good news, boss? I've got a new train. What's the bad news? I'm going to use your money to buy it. And so this SAP team made a fundamental sales mistake. Yeah? The fundamental sales mistake. Who controls the budget? Yeah? They didn't have any competition on the market. There was no competition on the SAP implementation team market because they'd done all of there was no competition there. But in stage 1, that isn't your competition. Your competition are the other internal projects that the customer is running to do the stuff that they want to do. Yeah? And so it's, competition is out there always, but our normal traditional competition doesn't actually become our real competition until stage 4. Yeah? In the early stages of the sale, our real competition are these projects and the people behind these projects and the level of power they feel in them.